He appeared like an ordinary neighbor who was very content with his family. However, all hell was let loose when this happened.
I can't find it.
You can't find what?
My kitty cat bracelet.
Where was it?
In here. They couldn't have stolen that, would they?
Now, the demon that was hidden away in him has been unleashed, and you do not dare cross his path.
Agent Mansell, FBI. So, who are you? I'm just a man who's looking for someone. There are 3 types of people who, as you say, flash cheese. People who don't know any better, people who are seeking to intimidate, and people like me who wish someone would try to take it from them.
Thank you for your service.
You too, old-timer?
Welcome back to Favorite Recap. Please subscribe to the channel and drop a comment, and tell us what you think about this recap.
So any takers?
Hutch Mansell was being held by 2 detectives in the interrogation room, but he was very unbothered. He sat in the dimly lit room with his face marked with bruises, but despite his injuries, he remained calm. Instead, he simply lit a cigarette and gave food to his pet. This infuriated the 2 detectives who asked him who he actually was. He didn't give an answer before the scene cuts. A few days earlier, we see Hutch living his routine life. Monday mornings were for jogging and work, while Tuesdays and Wednesdays follow a similar routine with little changes. He always returned home in the evening. Although there appears to be tension in his relationship with his wife, he didn't allow it to affect his children. His wife, Becca, who is a realtor, always looks exhausted when he gets back home in the evening. This uneventful routine repeats week after week until one Monday night. Late into the night, Hutch is awakened by a noise in the house. First, he checks on his children, finding Abby, the youngest, fast asleep, while Blake, his son, is awake and also concerned about the noise. Then Hutch realizes the sound is coming from downstairs. So, he cautiously goes to investigate. As he reaches the stairs, he spots 2 intruders entering the house. So, he silently retrieves a golf club, then tries to call the police, but the intruders spot him and force him to drop the phone at gunpoint. One of the intruders, who is a woman, demands for cash. However, Hutch tells her he only uses a debit card and points to a bowl on the table, telling her that was where the little cash in the house was. When the female intruder removes Hutch's wristwatch, he notices a tattoo on one of her hands. Suddenly, Blake attacks the other intruder from behind, pinning him to the ground. He called his dad to take care of the second, but just as Hutch is about to strike, he hesitates and asks Blake to let the man go. Freeing him, the intruders gather themselves and flee, leaving Blake furious at his father for letting them escape. When the police arrive, they inspect the house while Hutch stares at the garage gate. That was when he realized it had left the gate unsecured, thereby allowing the intruders easy access. He silently scolds himself for putting his family at risk, but his thoughts were interrupted by one of the police officers. He asked Hutch why he didn't act when he had the chance. Blake also shared the sentiment, still upset with his father's inaction. After the police leave, Hutch, feeling uneasy in his bedroom, moves to the living room where his daughter joins him. She reassured him that she wasn't scared because she felt safe knowing her dad was there. The next morning, Hutch resumed his usual routine. As the family was heading out, they noticed a neighbor with a new car. He tells Hutch that he had just inherited it from his dead father. He then mentioned that if he had been in Hutch's situation last night, he would have handled the intruders differently. With that, he got into his car and drove off. At work that morning, a colleague named Charlie, who was also Hutch's brother-in-law, approached him and brought up the incident. He suggested Hutch needed to be more prepared and showed him a gun. Charlie handed it to Hutch, emphasizing that nothing extinguishes a threat quicker than a bullet to the head. He then advised Hutch to use the gun to protect his sister. After Charlie left, Hutch put the gun in a fridge and headed to his office. Hutch currently works with his in-laws, but was making plans to buy the place. Later that morning, his father-in-law, Eddie, spoke to him, acknowledging that Hutch had done the best he could. Eddie also inquired why Hutch was so interested in acquiring the office place. So, Hutch tells him that he just wanted something to call his own. Moments later, Hutch watched his coworkers do their work before entering a private office where he turned on an old radio to listen to a flute melody. Thereafter, he talked with his half-brother Harry over the radio. He compliments Harry's improving skills, and Harry asks about the previous night's events. Hutch recounted that the intruders were a man and a woman armed with a .38 Special. He remembered the gun in detail, noting that it was empty. Harry replied that now he understood why he didn't do what he didn't do. However, he cautioned Hutch to be careful and avoid doing anything stupid. On his way home from work that evening, Hutch visited his father David at the old nursing home. They shared a meal, and David asked if Hutch was okay. He also wondered if Hutch remembered who they used to be as Hutch gazed at a family photo on the wall. At home that night, Hutch was talking with his family when Abby mentioned she couldn't find something. When Hutch asked what she was looking for, she replied that it was her kitty's bracelet, which had been on a bowl on the table. Hutch was furious that the robbers had stolen something so personal, so he left the house. He returned to his father's apartment where he got a gun, an old FBI ID, and some cash. When his father asked why he was back so soon, Hutch simply said he had something to take care of. Giving him a knowing look, his father advised him to better get it done. Hutch then visited various tattoo shops, showing them a drawing of the tattoo he had seen on one of the robbers' hands. No one seems to know who the owner was. After several stops, he finally found a shop where he recognized the tattoo design amongst their collection. After showing the FBI badge, he asked about the whereabouts of the individual. The men laughed and played him off until one of them recognized the tattoo on Hutch's own hand. The man quickly stood, thanked Hutch for his service, and fled, leaving the others to wonder just how dangerous Hutch might be. Apparently, it was a tattoo that the most deadly agents acquire in their time of service. He didn't need to ask further, as the men directed him to the man with the tattoo he was searching for. Later that evening, in a small house down an alley, a woman was making tea with her partner when Hutch barged in and struck the man with the base of his gun. He was very angry as he told the couple that his family didn't deserve what had happened to them that night and demanded his watch back. He then asked for the kitty bracelet, but the man insisted he didn't take any bracelet. Hutch didn't believe him, so he threw him to the floor in frustration. Just as he was about to shoot, a baby's cry was heard in the bedroom. When he went to look, Hutch found a very young baby on oxygen, which stopped him in his tracks. Frustrated, he left the house and vented his anger by punching a wall outside. Then, he decided to take a bus back home. On his way, inside the bus, there were only 2 other passengers. Suddenly, an SUV swerved into a trash bin on the side of the road, causing the bus to jolt. Hutch then noticed the men in the SUV were drunk and still drinking. He wondered if this might be an opportunity to release his pent-up anger, and in a voiceover, he says God doesn't close a door without opening another. He prayed for the bus driver to open the door for these bastards. His prayers were answered, and the men got on the bus. They bullied the male passenger out and harassed the female. That was when Hutch stood up, walked to the front of the bus, gently pushed the driver down, and locked the doors. The men, who were amused, laughed at him, especially when he told them he was going to deal with them. One of the men attacked Hutch, sparking a brutal fight. Hutch fought back fiercely even after being stabbed. When he was thrown out of the bus window, the men, who were now severely injured, wondered amongst themselves who Hutch was. However, Hutch wasn't done yet. So he got up, re-entered the bus, told the young woman to run as he prepared to take care of the men. Engaging once more, he stabbed one of the men, strangled another, and broke the neck of the third man, who began to struggle to breathe. Hutch, showing empathy, performed a tracheostomy with a straw which freed the man's airway. Before leaving the place, Hutch apologized to the driver for the mess and then walked off. When he got home that night, his wife was still awake and admitted she couldn't sleep. Seeing him in the light, she realized what he had been up to. She helped him clean up, and Hutch remarked that it felt like the old times. He then told her that he missed her and also asked her to remember who they used to be. The scene then shifts to a Russian mobster named Julian Kitov, who was responsible for securing the Obshak group's money. The group was the most dangerous Russian gang in the city, and Julian was up to the task of keeping the finances safe. He entered the club, played with the singer, then he went to meet some men in a back room. One of them questioned why Julian had a black man, Pav, on his team. Julian dismissed his concerns, saying Pav was as Russian as anyone. Another of the men criticized Julian's carefree behavior, suggesting it wasn't fitting for someone safeguarding their money. In response, Julian grabbed a glass cup, broke it, and killed one man with it. He then asked if they were now confident in his abilities. They all agreed that he was more than capable. It was at that moment Julian received a phone call. He then goes to a hospital where Teddy, one of the men Hutch had beaten, was. He stood over him and cried. Teddy was his brother, and the doctors had just informed Julian that Teddy might never walk again. Confused about why Teddy was even on a bus, Julian grabbed a chair and stormed into the ward where the other injured men were. Immediately he entered. He hurled the chair at them, demanding to know who had done this to his brother. In a rage, he repeatedly strikes one of the men until another handed him a card. It was Hutch's card, which had fallen out on the bus. In the meantime, Hutch was feeling more energetic and was more engaged with his kids. He then received a call from Harry, who asked if Hutch had been involved in the previous night's events. Hutch admitted that it felt like a kind of salvation, but Harry wasn't pleased. He warned Hutch that one of the men was Julian's brother and advised Hutch to consult the barber about who Julian was. Hutch eventually visited the barber, who explained that Julian was as dangerous as they come. He is a man who made bad situations worse. The barber also warned Hutch that if Julian didn't already know who Hutch was, he soon would. He then proceeds to tell him that Julian was responsible for safeguarding the Obi Shack's money. However, the barber suspected that Julian might be looking for a way out of the organization. About the same time, Julian was already looking into Hutch's background. His expert, Lupita, tracked down Hutch's father and noted that Hutch seemed harmless. Hearing this, Julian questioned her usefulness to him if she couldn't recognize a wolf in sheep's clothing. When Lupita finally uncovered Hutch's full records, she was horrified and resigned, immediately leaving the files with Julian. That evening, Hutch was having dinner with his family when he mentioned a possible vacation to Italy. Just then, he noticed cars pulling up outside their house. Recognizing the danger, he leads his family into a secret basement, instructing his wife not to call 911. As Julian's men entered the house, Hutch cut the power and began taking them out one by one in the darkness. However, he was eventually overpowered and knocked unconscious. Then, the men dragged him to their car and took him away. On their way, they debated whether to deliver him to Julian first or get medical help for their wounds. Meanwhile, inside the trunk, Hutch regained consciousness, grabbed a fire extinguisher, broke through the back seat, and sprayed the men, causing them to crash into a pole. However, Hutch survived the crash. He soon found the key to unlock his handcuffs, and as he did, he saw that the driver and front passenger were dead. Pav was impaled by a rod outside the car, so Hutch sat by him and started telling him a story about himself. Then Pav asked who Hutch was, to which he replied nobody. Pav died shortly after. On his way home, Hutch called his father to warn him about a possible looming danger. This drew up a smile from David. Reaching home, Hutch retrieved his family from the basement and made arrangements for them to move to a safe location. He promised his wife that he will be done soon. Back inside the house, Hutch arranged the injured and dead men on his couch and recounted his past. He told them about a mission where he had spared a man named Alan, expecting him to revert to his old ways. Instead, years later, Alan had built a happy family, something Hutch had wanted for himself. So, he had decided to choose the path himself. Hutch then said that even though he had always known his life was a facade, he had enjoyed it longer than he expected. When he finished his story, all the men were already dead. That was when he noticed the kitty bracelet, the very thing that had started this whole series of events, was in the house all along. Hutch gathered his belongings and set the house on fire. He was about to leave when he remembered his neighbor's car and decided to take it. Later on, two men entered the old nursing home, walking past the sleeping caregiver, and approached David's room. Though his TV was on, and he seemed to be asleep, David quickly disarmed one man and shot the other with a shotgun. The loud noise woke the caregiver, who rushed in to see what was happening. However, David pretended the TV was making all the noise, and the caregiver asked him to tune it down. He did, but then made sure to smother the second man. About that same time, Hutch returned to his office, threw several gold bars on the table, and declared that he was buying the place. Charlie was very displeased, and he tried to hit Hutch, but Hutch struck first. Eddie, though surprised, agreed to the deal, and Hutch ordered them to leave immediately. Julian, who was watching the news about the crash involving Pav and his other men, called someone to gather all his forces. At the same time, Hutch was seen fortifying his new office building. Harry warned him again about Julian, stating that he wouldn't come out of hiding to join Hutch in his fight. Ignoring his advice, Hutch stormed into a building heavily guarded by Julian's men. He killed everyone inside, grabbed a portrait, and set the building on fire with a bundle of cash. He made sure all of Julian's valuables were destroyed. That evening, Julian was once again singing at the club when he noticed Hutch sitting calmly at a table in front of the stage eating. Julian approached him and wondered about Hutch's audacity. While his men drew their guns, Hutch slowly lifted a cloth on the table, revealing a claymore attached to his finger. He then demanded a private conversation with Julian, who ordered his men to leave. Hutch told Julian that he was pissed that he came after his family, something no one has ever done. So, he informed Julian that his fortress had been destroyed as a consequence for attacking his home. Despite Julian's boiling anger, Hutch offered him a choice. They could both go their ways and rebuild what they had lost, or Julian could choose to pursue him. Hutch tells him that either one is okay with him, and then he leaves the building. Outside, Hutch waited in his car to see Julian's decision. As expected, Julian came out of the building and ordered his men to go after Hutch. This led to a high-speed pursuit, but Hutch managed to reach his fortified office first. Unfortunately, Julian shot him on the shoulder as he engaged the men in gunfire. Just as he runs out of bullets, Harry and David appear, gunning down several of Julian's men. Hutch was pleasantly surprised, and he joined them inside the building. Now inside, David tells him that he had missed the action too much to stay retired. Deciding on their next step, they faced Julian's men together using the traps Hutch had set up. Despite running low on ammo and Harry getting shot, they held their ground. As they finish off the men and Hutch and his team run out of ammo, Julian confronts Hutch, saying his family would pay the price for all he has done. Initially stranded, Hutch got an idea. He calmly taped the claymore to a bulletproof shield as his father and Harry wondered what he was up to. When he finished, he took the shield and charged toward Julian. When he was close enough, he pulled the pin, and the explosion killed Julian instantly. Hutch survived the explosion, and after recovering, he thanked Harry and David for their help, and the two had to hurry away before the police arrived. When they did, Hutch called his wife, promising to make things right, if she would accept him after everything that had happened. Finally, Hutch found the family cat and took Julian's portrait and walked out of the building. Then, the story returns to the beginning of the movie, where Hutch is sitting with the detectives. He calmly tells them that he is nobody. Just then, both detectives receive calls on their cell phones. Someone way above them was giving instructions. After the call, they inform Hutch that he is free to go. 3 months later, Hutch and Becca are being shown around a new home they are considering buying. As they explore, the realtor receives a call and hands the phone to Hutch, saying it's for him. After the call, both Hutch and Becca simultaneously asked if the house had a basement. In the post-credit scene, we see Harry and David are driving a truck through the countryside. David asks why they didn't just fly to their destination. In reply, Harry turned to him grinning and asked, "With these loads?" The camera pans to reveal the back of the truck packed with an arsenal of guns. They both gave a loud laugh as they continue on their journey. If you enjoyed this recap, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thanks for watching.